Buongiorno tutti and welcome to your supplemental video for our third lesson where we went to Milan. In this PowerPoint presentation, we're going to go a little deeper into numbers, reviewing that vocabulary, learning how to put those together, and then adding on the higher numbers, the hundreds and the thousands. I'm going to introduce a little bit of new vocabulary that was requested, the days of the week, months of the year, and then we'll learn how to tell the time and the date. Finally, I'm going to wrap up by giving you an overview of the vocabulary you need to work with La Partita di pallone, the song that we listened to this week. So let's go, or I should say andiamo. Before we get started, I want to point out um, a few things about how to engage with the material, starting with how we can organize a study plan. So if what you want to do is just build your foundation, if you just want to do the main material and really get that down pat, what I recommend focusing on for week one is the vocabulary and those informal greetings. Come ti chiami, di dove sei, and come stai, all of those. For week two, add the vocabulary and then focus on mi piace, ti piace. So mi piace nuotare, ti piace nuotare, being able to talk about your likes and dislikes. For week three, vocabulary as always, focus on counting 1 to 100 and learn how to use the interrogative quanto, which is really easy because you just say quanto costa. And if you recall, the slide for that was when we looked at various clothing items and asked how much they cost. So if this is where you want to focus, or if you want to just focus on the basics, this is what I would recommend for your study plan. But if you're up for a bit of a challenge, for week one, I would add the bonus vocabulary and phrases, and then add the formal for our greetings and introductions. Remember, that's come si chiama, di dove, all that good stuff. For week two, start to recognize masculine and feminine, singular and plural nouns, in addition to the bonus vocabulary. So we saw a little bit about that with the art history terms. I'm starting to include that on vocabulary in the PowerPoint without necessarily explaining it, so you can start to recognize those patterns. And for week three, start getting comfortable with higher numbers, which we're going to cover in this video, and then add your adjectives. Adjectives are a lot of fun. They're not too difficult to work with, and I would recommend that as a really doable bonus vocabulary that'll add a lot of literal color to your conversation. Are you insane? Are you up for the insanity workout? So for week one, if you're up for a real challenge, start really getting comfortable with the alphabet so you can spell in Italian. That's going to be a great thing. It seems small, but it can be really great to do. So I would add that. For week two, add piacersi, that is mi piace, ti piace, with singular and plural nouns, and add directions. For class, we just talked about what we like to do. When you start talking about things that you like, I like dogs, I like cats, I like coffee, it's a little different. So for the supplemental materials, if you really want a good workout, go ahead and add that. And then for week three, if you really want a challenge, if you are up for the insanity workout, add those definite articles, il, la, etc. Now you saw those on your vocabulary lists, but we haven't really explained them. You've probably started noticing those patterns, and on the supplemental materials, you can find slides explaining exactly how those work. So if you want a little bit of grammar, you can add that. And if you want something more functional, try out asking and telling time, which we'll go over in this video. Finally, I want to review the 4 stages of skill building, which are noticing, recognizing, understanding, and producing. So you all are really superb at noticing things. You say, hey, wait a second, that is the noun that I saw, but the ending has changed. Or, oh, it looks different when I do this. That's the first thing. And a lot of what we do is just being able to notice those patterns and start to get a feel for what Italian looks like as a whole, which for a 6-week class is a lot more doable than painstakingly going over each grammar point, point by point. You don't get a lot of bang for your buck that way. Instead, take a step back, notice those broad patterns, see what kind of changes happen to the words that you're becoming familiar with. The next stage is recognizing it. You don't necessarily understand what it's saying, but you say, oh, okay, that's a singular plural thing, or it's conjugating the verb, or I know that's a masculine feminine thing. Recognizing, oh, I know what pattern I'm looking at. After that, understanding it, being able to look at something and say, oh, that's a feminine singular noun. That's a masculine plural noun, or that's the I form or the you form of the verb, that kind of thing. Being able to read and understand it when you hear it or read it. And finally, producing it, being able to, when you speak or write, use these patterns. So, for any of the material, the basic, the wild woman, or the insanity workout, you can gauge where you want to be with these things. So you can say, okay, I'm going to get my foundational thing absolutely stone cold. I'm going to be able to produce those. I'm going to be able to say, come ti chiami, mi chiamo, without looking at my sheet. I'm going to be able to just really get that to the highest level to be able to produce it. But maybe for telling time, I just want to recognize. I want to look at that and say, "Oh, this is they're telling time with those numbers." Maybe something else you want to understand it. Okay, I want to be able to tell that that's singular or plural without necessarily being able to remember how to do that myself from rote. So you can, adjust that dial accordingly. So, with that, let's do a little Italian, starting with I numeri, the numbers. Now, I'm going to gloss over the numbers 1 to 20 because that's in your vocabulary and there's really not much to it. You really just have to memorize these by rote. What I recommend is count things, practice counting things. Just I count my students, I count my books, I count my cats, I do all that good stuff. And get it in your body. Say it out loud and then count, starting with the thumb, count on your fingers. So we have uno, due, tre, quattro, cinque, sei, sette, otto, nove, dieci. Practice counting 1 to 10 over and over and over again. And don't forget that you have that song video as well. Getting into the teens, we have undici, dodici, tredici, quattordici, quindici, sedici, diciassette, diciotto, diciannove. All right. So we have 1 and 10 and 2 and 10 and 3 and 10 and 4 and 10 and 5 and 10 and 6 and 10 and 7 and 10 or 10 and 7, 10 and 8, 10 and 9. Totally ruined our rhythm. Well, the way I remember when to change the order of how we're combining these is sedici is you're 16, you get your driver's license, and after that, the whole world changes. So that's when you have your flip. After sedici, then diciassette, diciotto, diciannove. That's just how I remember it. But just like 1 to 10, and any number, it's going to be mostly repetition. It's very much unlike learning other parts of language. Numbers aren't really meaningful, they're very abstract. So we kind of have to learn them that way. However, I do have a trick for Queen Dici because for whatever reason, people always have trouble with Queen Dici. I get a lot of Cinque Dici or a lot of blank stares in class for 15. And so what I have is this. So some of my undergraduates are big Swifties, and Taylor Swift had a song way back when, 15. And if she is the queen, uh, Queen Dici. So that's how I remember 15. And whether you're a Swiftie or not, it seems to work. Queen Dici. E poi, and then we're in the home stretch. After this, nothing's really weird. So let's review 20 to 29. We have 20, like at Starbucks, where you have a 20 ounce. Mamma mia, that's a lot. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. All right, easy peasy. No flips, no tricks, no nothing. However, there are a couple nuances of pronunciation. 20 and uno becomes 21. Remember that this E vowel, it's a weak vowel. That's why we have to prop it up with the letter H to make it a nice strong sound when it comes up next to a G. So it kind of collapses and just becomes 21 instead of 21, 21. Same thing with all your other 30, 40, 50, because they end in a, 31, 41. And the same thing with otto, so 28, 38, 48. You'll pick that up very naturally, but that's just a little detail I want to include. This doesn't happen for hundreds, though. Cento and uno, 101 is just cento uno, 101. 201, due, cento uno. And we'll get into how to do these higher numbers later. Just know that that doesn't change any pronunciation. It's just in your 20 to 99. All right. And all your other 30, 40, 50, 60, all of those, they all work exactly like 20. Same pattern, same everything. So you really just have to learn those as vocabulary, which is on the vocabulary video. So we'll see 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90. They all work on the 20 pattern quite conveniently. So that's pretty straightforward. Couple little details in there, and mostly it's just repetition for numbers. Getting into our higher numbers, those are actually really simple in Italian. We'll start with cento. Cento is 100. 100%, 100%. And then for all the others, if you want to say 200, 300, 400, you just say the number, due, and then cento. Literally 200, due, cento, tre, cento, quattro, cento, etc., etc. Right? Easy peasy. Now we're up to 1,000, and that's mille, which you know from grazie mille. So Americans say, oh, thanks a million. Italians, a little stingier there. Grazie mille, 1,000 thanks. And it's mille. The only thing that's odd about these higher numbers is that the plural of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 is mila. So one L and it's mila. But it works just like 100. Due mila, tre mila, quattro mila. So you just say the number and then tack mila. So mille, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, etc. Okay? So easy peasy. All right. Well, what about when we're getting to numbers a little more complicated? Now, this can be intimidating at this because look at the number 1983, like the year. It says el anno and the year. 1983, well, 1983, and you go, Mamma mia, look at that number. It's actually really easy. You just say each place. Mille, 983, and then it's just all written one word, but you literally just say each place, like each decimal place, 1983. Ta-da! And this is the year I was born, so 1983. And here is the most wonderful part, is this means 1983, the year. It also means 1,983, as in $1,983. So lots of bang for your buck. Do not be intimidated by what this looks like. It's literally just just say the decimal place, and they just don't put spaces in them. Excuse me. Same thing for the year or higher numbers. Easy peasy. All righty. And of course, this is the year I was born, so 1983, I had to put in Flashdance. So, same thing. Numbers, years. And this is never going to change. This is just going to be the formula you use for all the years. So right now we are in 2025. So I just said 2025. 2025. All right. Let's go into the days of the week. This is vocabulary that was requested, and this is really cool because in English, the days of the week actually come from mostly the Norse gods. So, for example, Wednesday is Woden's day, Friday is Freya's day. But suitably enough, Italian days of the week actually come from the Roman pantheon. So we'll start with lunedì is the day of Luna, the moon. So lunedì. D is a very old, archaic way of saying day. So contemporary Italian, we say giorno for day, as in buon giorno. D is an older word for day. Any opera lovers will recognize this from Madama Butterfly, un bel dì, one beautiful day. And even if you don't think you recognize that, if you look that up on YouTube, you have heard that aria before. So that's the day of the moon, lunedì. Oops, I'll go back to that. Martedì is the day of Mars, Tuesday, martedì. Mercoledì. Mercoledì is the day of Mercury, Wednesday. Mercoledì. Giovedì. Giovedì is Thursday, the day of Jove. Giovedì, or Jupiter. Venerdì. Venerdì is the day of Venere, Venus, Friday. And notice that the accent here, that's where we put our stress, venerdì. And then we have la fine della settimana, woo, the weekend, which they often just say il weekend. We have sabato is Saturday, domenica, Sunday. All right, so lunedì, martedì, mercoledì, giovedì, venerdì, sabato, domenica. And I have a few parole utili, useful words. Ieri. Ieri is yesterday. Oggi. Oggi is today. Domani. Domani is tomorrow. And in fact, ieri, oggi, domani is a famous Italian film starring Sophia Loren and Marcello Mastroianni. And I think it won an Oscar back in the day for, it was either I think it was best foreign film. Beautiful cinematography. And of course, Sophia Loren is gorgeous. So, ieri, oggi, domani. Yesterday, today, tomorrow. We also have dopodomani. Dopodomani is the day after tomorrow. Dopo is after. So this is literally the after tomorrow. Dopodomani, day after tomorrow. And my personal favorite, l'altro ieri. L'altro ieri is the day before yesterday, but it literally means the other yesterday. And I guess we say, oh, the other day I saw, but this is just more specific. Day before yesterday is l'altro ieri, the other yesterday. And you'll notice these saying ieri like that, ieri, you look at those words and you think, oh goodness, that's a few vowels next to each other. It's a little tricky. You just say each one. I-e-r-i. Ieri. Nothing silent there. Nothing funky. It's just ieri. Ieri. You got this. And for good measure, let's add le quattro stagioni, the 4 seasons. We have primavera. Primavera is spring, just like the famous painting by Botticelli. Estate. Estate is summer. Autunno. Autunno is autumn. Inverno. Inverno is winter. Non inferno, not Dante, but inverno is winter. Okay. And finally, we have I mesi dell'anno, the months of the year. And I'm just going to read these out because you know what they mean. I'm also going to include a song that is extremely catchy that I will link to you. So we have gennaio, febbraio, marzo, aprile, maggio, giugno, luglio, agosto, settembre, ottobre, novembre, dicembre. Months of the year. We'll do them again slowly. I'll repeat each one. Gennaio, gennaio, febbraio, febbraio, marzo, marzo, aprile, aprile, maggio, maggio, giugno, giugno, luglio, luglio, agosto, agosto, settembre, settembre, ottobre, ottobre, novembre, novembre, dicembre, dicembre. All right, let's learn how to ask the date and say what date it is. The question is, qual è la data? Qual è la data? Literally, which is the date. Qual, which, è is la data, the date. Qual è la data? And the formula is è, it is, il, and then whatever number, we learned our numbers 1 through 31, and then the month. The first you can say of the month is il primo, the way we would say the first, and then we say it's second, third in English. They just do il primo, the first, and then it's il due, il tre, il quattro, the two, the three, the four. The il is important here. Notice this is the first time I've ever told you that il is important. It's important here. È il numero mese. It's il number month. Il number month. Il number month. I'm repeating that because it's important. Il number month. So you don't need to add anything like of or anything like that. It's just il numero mese. Il number month. So here's our formula. Il numero mese. Il numero mese in Italian. So some examples. Qual è la data? What's the date? È il 25 dicembre. È il 25 dicembre. So that's Natale, Christmas. Il 25 dicembre. Qual è la data? È il 14 febbraio. È il 14 febbraio. So it's the 14th of December. È il 14 febbraio. All right, let's contrast this with telling time. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into telling time because it's a little complicated grammatically for what you want to do. I would suggest that if you want to tackle this, stay with the noticing or recognizing phases instead of saying, okay, I'm going to know exactly how to write down what time it is or produce that in perfectly grammatical Italian. What I would suggest is set your goal at being able to distinguish when people are talking about dates versus times, and I'll show you why. We'll start with the question. How do you ask what time it is? You can say che ore sono, che ore sono, or che ora è, che ora è. Both of these mean what time it is. Literally, what hours are they or what hour is it? What's the hour? Both of these are totally interchangeable. There is no difference whatsoever. There's no formal or informal. There's no difference in meaning. It doesn't matter what time it is. Anybody can say this. They are totally, totally, totally interchangeable. So, and I just pick one, say, okay, this is how I'm going to ask what time it is. Che ore sono? Or che ore è? And just pick one, and that's the way you're going to say it. If you want to learn how to use this. And the answer is going to vary depending on what time it is. So if it's noon, midnight, or 1 o'clock, we say it is. È mezzogiorno. È mezzogiorno. It is midday or noon. È mezzogiorno. È mezzanotte. È mezzanotte. It is midnight. È mezzanotte. Or è luna. È luna. It is the one. If it's 2, 3, 4, 5, if it's any other time other than midday, midnight, or 1 o'clock, you say sono le. Sono le due. It is 2 o'clock. Sono le due. Sono le tre. Sono le quattro. Sono le cinque. The reason for this is. It is midday. It is midnight. It is 1 o'clock. But 2, 3, 4, 5, those are all plural. So this is it. They are the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5. So little bit, there's some details in there. Sono le due, sono le tre, sono le quattro, sono le cinque. And you can memorize this by rote if it's something that you want to do. You really want, if this is a grammar point you really want to master, you can just say, okay, masculine, feminine, singular, plural, whatever. I'm just gonna go e mezzogiorno, e mezzanotte, e luna, sono le due, sono le tre, sono le, and just memorize it as a phrase, and then the understanding of it will come later. And you'll have this beautiful light bulb moment and go, oh, like sono le tre. That's perfectly fine. You don't need to understand every little detail of it to memorize patterns and start to incorporate them in your Italian, not by a long shot. So if it's any time other than a whole hour, you can say your first part, è luna, è mezzogiorno, è mezzanotte, or sono le due, sono le tre, sono le quattro, or whatever. And then you add e and un quarto, e tre quarti, e mezzo, or just a number, e 10, and 10, e 13, and 13. You can do this interchangeably. Un quarto, quarter after, it's also 15. So remember Taylor Swift. We can say quindici. So for example, sono le due e quindici. It's 2 o'clock. It's 2:15. Sono le due e un quarto. It's quarter after 2. You can do this with 45 or half and replace those with numbers as well. And then you can also do, like what we do is we say, oh, it's 10 till. You can do that, but you use meno, which is minus. So if you said, let's say it's 10 till 2, you could say sono le due meno 10. Sono le due meno 10. It is the 2, or they are the 2, minus 10. Or you could say è l'una e 50. It is 1 and 50. So you can see why this is a very popular grammar point to just chuck from the curriculum. But it's not too bad. If this is making your head spin, just focus on the numbers, get those numbers down real well, and just say, okay, I'm going to learn to tell time later. And if you're going, okay, maybe, all right, I can kind of see what's going on. Focus on just being able to tell when people are talking about the date versus the time. And here we have another layout of what this is like. I like to add different PowerPoint slides that show information in different ways because maybe one layout or one explanation will really click for you, but another won't. So I add a bit. This is ore particolari, as in particular hours, and it's talking about e luna, e mezzogiorno, and e mezzanotte. Right, so these are just particular hours. As a note, when you want to say what time does something happen, you can say a che ora, at what hour, whatever. And then the answer is a luna, a mezzogiorno, a mezzanotte, or alle due, alle tre. That's a little bit much. If you want to recognize that a is at for both time and place, you can. I include it here because it's already part of the slide. But really, this is going even beyond the insanity workout. So if you've truly lost your mind, the information's out there. And honestly, I would just work on it on YouTube. They have a lot of really good videos for telling time in Italian that can go into more depth than we can here. And here's an alternate explanation, or you can just memorize these as phrases and say, okay, I can just say a luna is at 1, alle due at 2, a mezzogiorno at noon, and just say, whatever. I'm just going to memorize it as vocab and let the grammar go for now. Perfectly acceptable. The important thing to be able to distinguish if this is something that you are working on is time versus date. So the reason those structures are different and the reason that il is important is because of masculine and feminine. We haven't gone into grammar, the masculine and feminine nouns very much because except for this, it's not really a big difference. You're already learning those words as vocabulary. And it's just not a lot of bang for your buck for a 6-week class to get into the weeds of that. But it does make a difference for time versus date. So if you look at this, ora, hour, it ends in a, it's a feminine. So if we sono le tre, it's 3 o'clock. Le is a feminine article, it's feminine plural. E il tre, the 3, il is a masculine singular, right? Grammar doesn't make sense, it's fine. But if you see le tre, that's a feminine, it's the time. Il tre is masculine, it's the date. So hours are feminine, days are masculine, go figure. And again, for now, this is the only distinction between masculine and feminine nouns that's going to make a major difference in meaning. For all the rest, it's really just part of the word. It comes from the Latin, and there's nothing really esoteric or deep about grammatical gender. It tends to trip people up. And they say, what makes a table feminine, or what makes a day masculine? And it's just categories of nouns that follow a pattern. Just like we have categories of verbs that conjugate in patterns. We have first, second, third conjugation verbs, right? So don't let that trip you up. For now, just know that that's what's going on here and be able to recognize that if you see il, it's the day. If it's lei, it's the time. All right. Well, with that out of the way, and some of you probably thinking, maybe I'm not going to learn to tell time. Not just yet. And some of you going, yeah, now I got it. Let's go into the last part, which is a review of the vocabulary for this week's song, which is La Partita di Pallone. And I'm going to point out a fun aspect of Italian here is you notice this isn't capitalized. When you capitalize the titles of songs, books, movies, whatever, you only have to capitalize the first letter of the first word and the rest can be lowercase, which actually this P in partita should be capitalized. Mi dispiace, my apologies. Anyway, so this song, La Partita di Pallone, the ball game, and by ball, pallone, they mean soccer. Soccer is calcio, from the verb calciare, to kick. But when you say pallone by itself, just ball or ball game, it means soccer. The same way ball game here, we know implicitly it means baseball. So once again, I've listed the vocabulary not in the order that it is in the song, but I've grouped similar words so you can start to recognize those patterns. And again, it's not a word for word translation. You don't need that for what you're doing. So let's get into the vocab. We have perché, why, and this apostrophe looking thing that's actually an accent going over the e. It's not the accent that goes down, it goes up that away. Most accents are going to go down, but for perché, it's an upward accent. Perché, why? Sola, sola is alone. Sempre, sempre, always. As in the Marines, semper fi comes straight from the Latin, sempre, always. Pure, pure is even. And this is kind of an interesting word. It's kind of an intensifier. Pure. Davvero. Davvero, really. And this is a really interesting word. And you can use this in conversation. Davvero? Really? Or here, davvero, really, truly. So you would use this just like we use really in English. Chissà, chissà, who knows? This is a contraction of chi, who, and then sa is knows. But if you put it all together, chissà, it becomes this phrase, who knows? Chissà. We have la partita. La partita is the game or match, typically in sports. But I believe a match like for chess could be called a partita. La squadra. La squadra is the team. La scusa. La scusa is the excuse, as in excuse me, scusa. I dubbi. I dubbi, doubts, as in dubious. Dubbi, doubts. Una bugia. Una bugia, a lie, versus la verità. La verità, the truth. Now you'll notice I have la, y, una, la. So I'm mixing it up according to whether it was singular or plural or referred definite or indefinite in the song. Don't worry about that so much. I'm just presenting it the way it is in the song. So this is the game versus a lie. Doubts is plural, scusa is singular. That's what's going on there. But it's not important to be able to reproduce that. All right. And now we get into our verbs, which I have grouped according to what form they're in. So starting with the to form, the you form, lasci. Lasci, you leave, from lasciare. Lasciare, to leave behind. So for lasciare, it's not like to depart, like you're physically leaving a place. It's when you leave something, right? So it's and grammatically we call this a transitive verb. If that's, technical terms that you don't know or don't remember, it's fine. But the distinction is that you are leaving something or someone behind, not that you are departing yourself. Lasci, you leave. Porti, porti, you take, from portare, portare, to take or to carry. And this is also, and it's to take something somewhere, as opposed to like take a candy. You take just this is where we get the word porter, or a port of call, or import. It's moving things around. And it's also, you notice for the fashion vocabulary we did, it's also refers to what size you wear, what size do you carry. So then we have dici. Dici, you tell, from dire. Dire, to say or to tell. And we've actually used quite a few forms of this in class. You remember that dimmi, tell me, is the informal way of responding to a question. Dimmi, tell me, what's up? What can I do for you? And the formal would be mi dica. Mi dica, which you would hear a sales clerk might say that to you, especially in a fancy place. Mi dica. So dici, you tell. So lasci, porti, dici, all of these are the you form. You are leaving or you leave. You take, you tell. Then we have the I forms. Seguirò, seguirò. I will follow. From seguire, seguire, to follow, like sequence, seguirò. If you think back to quando, we had words like attenderò, I will wait. That O ending, it makes it a future form of the I. I will do this thing. And then also we have ritornerò, ritornerò, I will return, I will go back. From ritornare, ritornare, to return. So there we've got another, just like last week's song, we have a couple future forms. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And the rest of the verb forms we have are infinitives. I've put the infinitives of these verbs here. Remember, infinitives are that dictionary form of the verb. It's the words that we had after mi piace, ti piace. It was the same form. I like to do this, and this is just to do whatever. So we have andare, andare, to go, vedere, vedere, to see, from like video, vedere, dormire, dormire, to sleep, as in a dormitory is where you dormire, it's where you sleep. Scoprire, scoprire is to discover. So coprire is to cover, scoprire is to uncover or discover. And here's a fun one, imbrogliare, 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 to deceive. Now, you'll notice that I think for dormire, scoprire, imbrogliare, they drop the e. She sings imbrogliar or scoprir. That is a common thing that you see in music, poetry, and also some Southern dialects. They will drop that final vowel. And in music and poetry, it's to make things scan or to make the syllables fit. It's pretty common even in pretty contemporary music, but you also see it a lot in older music, opera. So don't let that throw you when you see that dormir, scoprir, imbrogliar. Okay, that's those verb infinitives. So again, this is not a word for word. And to get the most out of the activity, you can learn these by rote and just add them to your vocabulary. Um, you can go look up the lyrics online, and I'm actually going to send you a link to the text in Italian with a side-by-side translation. Familiarize yourself with that, and then just listen and read just like we did before. Once you're real comfortable with the meaning and you can follow the story of the song at about 90%. You don't know every single word, but you know what she's singing about in each verse. Listen to the song and read the Italian without any English, and do that until you just can't stand it or the people you live with can't stand it anymore. That's one way to engage, and that's great. Just keep at it. Um, the next step is, if you want to, you could learn the song, sing it in your car, again, drive the people you live with crazy, memorize the song, again, even if you don't know every single word, learn the song. And this is a really powerful technique. You can learn whole songs, you can memorize songs really, really easily. It's a lot easier to memorize a song than it is to memorize a chart of verbs, you know? Um, Music makes things catchy, so take advantage of that. And if you memorize enough songs, you keep up with your Italian, a few months down the line, you'll see the grammatical structures and the vocabulary in your studies and go, oh, and it's an old friend. A light bulb moment comes and it's illuminated by something you already know. It is a very powerful technique. It's an investment in future understanding. So don't sweat it if you don't really know grammatically everything that's happening. Um, Right now, if you have the meaning and you have those words, the grammar will be so easy for you in the future. And if you want to do the insanity workout, what you can do is you recall the close exercise. So you, without looking at the lyrics, you listen to a verse and see if you can't write down what she's saying without looking. This will help train your ear. Um, and if you don't want to write it down word for word, you can say, okay, I'm going to try to write down the nouns and verbs. So you listen to a verse, pause it, jot down what you heard, check your work, and keep going from there. But really, just listening and reading, um, especially if you do that a lot, it's better to listen and read at the same time, listen to it three, four, five times in a row than it is to listen to it once and then say, okay, I'm gonna, jump to these more advanced ways of doing this. Um, so that is what I've got for you this week. I know it's a lot, but remember, we have uh, a basic foundation and a lot of a smorgasbord of things to select from. So don't worry if it's a lot, just do what you like, do what you can, and I will see you next time.